Hey guys, Bigrat 310s here again to do a quick little video. I don't know what the hell that is. Oh, it's a hole. So for the interview show, I did the interview with AG Vito for Life. I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. In fact, in my opinion, no offense to my other guests, it's probably the second or third best one I've ever done. Mainly because it's different. Like, as great as I think some of these interviews have been, a lot of them are, I'm Joe Wrestling fan. This is how I became Joe Wrestling fan. This is how I got on the internet, and this is how I'm different. And they've all been awesome, and I'm going to do a lot more of them, so I don't mean to bury my own product. Not going to WWE this shit out here, because I do think they've all been great. But I think that this guy, AG Vito for Life, because he is training to be a pro wrestler and has wrestled matches on the indie scene and has refereed on the indie scene, he has a different story. He has a very different story, and that's why I thought the interview was really interesting. I was a little disappointed by the view count. I mean, I understand, but I'm disappointed. None of you guys know him, and so the view count is a little lower than some of the other ones, which I personally don't care about views, but I think I want this kid to get the recognition he deserves. And Brian, which, yeah, that interview was amazing, but you guys didn't know who he was, and that interview is, I think it's the second highest viewed one. So I think the problem is me, because I hyped Brian up big time, and it's the second highest viewed interview show. So I'm going to hype this guy a little more, hopefully to get him some more love. I thought the interview was amazing. So many great stories about the indie scene, so many great stories about pretty much anything pro wrestling related. We talked a lot about Chikara. We talked a lot about how he got into the business. Just a lot of good stories. Please go watch that video right there. And please also, I didn't get to talk about it, unfortunately. In the video, he said that his favorite match that he's ever refereed was the 10-man Chikara match from the Boston show this past September. I saw that match, and that match is really good. That match is the best match on that whole DVD. If you go back to my review of that match, I said at first, well, the match did go a little long, and it was a little spot happy towards the end, but it was just super entertaining because all these guys were trying to make a name for themselves, and the crowd bought into it, and it was just a really fun match. So definitely go check that match out. And another match that he introduced to me in the interview, ACH versus AR Fox in their Beyond Wrestling Tournament for Tomorrow first round match. He's told me that match was just really great, and I saw it, and I thought it was a really good match. Very good match. For those who want star ratings, the 3.5, 3 3/4 range. I saw other pro wrestling websites give it 3 3/4, so I think one gave it 4. It's a really fun match. It's a fun match with some spots that, like I said, when you can do things that I've never seen before in wrestling in a good way, then you deserve extra high marks. And I thought that match did that. There were some spots in that match that I legitimately had never seen before. So definitely a really fun match. I would check it out. Here's the link to it down below. I posted a YouTube link. Please go watch it. And please go watch the interview because the kid deserves it. Now, before I get on to the Wrestling Observer Awards, those who follow me on Twitter already know the answer to this, but the next interview will be with the Dirty White Boy. That's right. I'm going to film the show tomorrow. Hopefully I can get it up by Friday. Crossing my fingers. Hopefully. But I'm filming the show tomorrow, and I'm really excited about it. I think that it's going to be very interesting. I know I'm only giving a day's notice, but that's just because the timing, it wasn't the best. But it worked out. It's worked out fine now. But it doesn't really matter. With Brian, I didn't get to the questions because we just had so much to talk about. So I'm going to get in as many questions as I can. I already got a few questions on Twitter, so please send a message to my inbox saying your question to the Dirty White Boy. And I think the interview is going to be really interesting. So go check that out. Look out for the interview tomorrow. And now, the Wrestling Observer Awards. Basically, every year, I've been on YouTube for almost 3 years, around 3 years now, which is kind of scary, actually, in hindsight, because to me, it feels like I started making videos yesterday. So I've been here for 3 years, and every year I go over the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. But every year the video is a fucking pain in the ass to make because I go over all the awards and I give my thoughts on who I thought should have won. And the video comes out like crap because I have to edit it a million times, and it's just me saying names. It doesn't have me giving my opinions. So to do that this year, since everyone's doing a bunch of year-end awards, even though we're already in January 4th, man, on a side note, can you really believe the January 4th Impact versus Raw Monday Night War was 2 years ago? That's just amazing to me. Time flies, man. So I'm going to give my year-end awards title, which is basically the same thing as the Wrestling Observer Awards. I'm just going to give, because I got to vote in the awards. You get to vote if you're a subscriber. So I'm going to read you my picks and who I think will win, who I think should win. So these are my year-end awards as well. And I'll include some other stuff if it's not mentioned in here. So, and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards come out next week, Wednesday. So when they come out, I will definitely be coming on here talking about them again. So let's get into this. My year-end awards. All right. The Wrestler of the Year Award, or how he calls it, the THESZ FLAIR, Ric Flair Award of the Award. My Wrestler of the Year this year is Hiroshi Tanahashi, without question. I haven't seen a lot of him. I've seen every defense up to August. Everything after that I haven't seen yet. And I know he's done a lot of his defenses in the past few months. I know. I have a huge fucking list of pre-row matches that I'll hopefully get to by the end of the month. So I'll get to his stuff, but he's just been on a roll this year. He broke the record for most IWGP title defenses. For those who do not know, he is the New Japan IWGP champion. He's kind of been the man right now because not only has he been carrying the promotion all year, but he's been having amazing matches after amazing matches after amazing matches all year. He's everything that this award represents, and he's been doing really well. His match with Satoshi Kojima at Wrestle Kingdom was my match of the year for a while going into the year. Then he had that really good match. Then his rematch with Satoshi Kojima was also good. Then he had a match with Yuji Nagata and Shinsuke Nakamura that were both really good, really fun. Then he had a match with Hiroki Goto that I thought was excellent. I love that match. Excellent match. And a little more recently, I haven't seen these matches yet. I will. He's had matches with Toru Yano, Tetsuya Naito, Shinsuke Nakamura, Yuji Nagata again. I'll get to them, I promise. But he's been doing really, really well this year, and he definitely deserves it. My number 2 is CM Punk. I think he created a buzz in WWE this year that we haven't seen in 10 years, I would say. I think he rose to the top as a legit main eventer. He was an upper mid-carder / main eventer for a long time, kind of in the spot that Christian's in now, kind of in the spot that The Miz is in now, kind of in the spot that Daniel Bryan's a little lower, but he's still kind of there. But Punk finally, I think, broke through that mold and entered into that John Cena, Randy Orton level and establishing himself as a permanent main eventer. And he did that through his own merit. And he's also been putting on great matches. He's had the current match of the year. So my number 2, definitely. And my number 3, this was tough. I gave it to Go Shiozaki. Noah hasn't been doing very well right now, but I know Shiozaki has been putting on great matches all year long, going back to his really good match at Wrestle Kingdom. But he's had, supposedly, I haven't seen any of his title defenses. I haven't even seen his title win. Supposedly he's had great matches with Takashi Sugiura, with Kenta, with Takayama, with Akiyama. But like from his accomplishments as a champion, I think it warrants enough for me giving him the number 3. I don't talk a lot about MMA on here. I am a big MMA fan. I won't say I'm the most knowledgeable. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and I predict what I know. But I will admit that I don't know everything. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not like a ridiculously great MMA expert. I just, I'm a fan, and I'm a big fan. And I comment on when I see the shows. I give my predictions, and that's about it. But for my MMA most valuable, I didn't really know on this one. I kind of used the Peyton Manning logic, why I think Peyton Manning should win the NFL MVP, because I think that his absence has shown how important he is to that team. He's on that team this year, and they go to the playoffs. It's not even a debate, in my opinion. He gets production out of anybody. He gets production out of fourth-string receivers. And I think his absence, and now the Colts are the worst team in football, I mean, that really says something. So that's why I would vote him. And I guess, also on the same side, George St. Pierre, GSP, not only did he have the biggest show of the year with Jake Shields as far as pay-per-view buys go, but his absence in October also really hurt the UFC financially this year. It really lowered their average for pay-per-view that year. They lost a lot of money on that fight not happening. So definitely, the fact that he had the biggest show of the year, and if he had been on that other show probably would have been the second or third biggest show of the year. The fact that he was a part of both of them, and he missed one of them, and it really hurt the UFC, that to me shows his value. My number 2, I put John Jones. John Jones has had 4 fights this year. I think his ability to be so amazing and to come back and be ready for another title defense has helped the UFC a lot. I think, most champions, really, they only defend it twice a year. He's defended it. He's won it. He's had 4 fights this year, which is insane. And he won it, even though Donald Cerrone has had 5, I think, and no one's talking about that. He won the title and then he defended it twice. And the fact that he was able, it's not like his title defenses were amazing numbers. They were great numbers, I thought. They were like, I think it's besides GSP Jake Shields and besides Vitor Belfort versus Anderson Silva, I think those were the three. I think those were the highest pay-per-views of the year, even though the Brock Lesnar fight, obviously the big numbers. So I'm talking the match against Rampage Jackson, the match against Machida, the match against Shogun. Those all three were the next three biggest shows of the year. And I think because he's so great, because he's able to come back so quickly, he put on three 480,000 plus buy shows as opposed to only two. So I do think, and he's arguably the best in the world right now. So his value to MMA has been very important. And for the third, I don't really know what to do with this one. I kind of gave it to Brock Lesnar just because he might surpass George St. Pierre with his biggest show of the year. And also, kind of like George St. Pierre, his absence from the June show with Junior Dos Santos really did hurt the UFC financially. A lot of people talking about George St. Pierre, story of the year, he missed a fight. To me, Brock missing his fight was just as big. I mean, they lost just as much, if not more, money off that fight of Brock not appearing. How is it different? My opinion. Most outstanding wrestler, I give this to Eddie Edwards. I just think, I look at my top 5 matches for Ring of Honor this year, and he's in all 5. Yeah. It's Roderick Strong versus Roderick Strong at Death Before Dishonor, versus Eddie Edwards versus Davey Richards at Best in the World, versus Chris Hero at Revolution Canada, versus Roderick Strong at Manhattan Mayhem, and the American Wolves versus Future Shock from No Escape. Those are my top 5 Ring of Honor matches of the year. He's in all 5. He's just been he's had great matches in PWG, a few great stuff in Noah. He really has just been on a tear this year, and he's put on so many great performances. I have to give it to him. My number 2 is Akira Tozawa. I would have given him the number 1 a few months ago. If you guys remember, back in May, June, I was asking people on Twitter, is Akira Tozawa the best in the world right now? Unfortunately, he did go back to Dragon Gate, and he did have some great match in Dragon Gate. Supposedly he had an awesome match with Shingo. But I think because he went back to Dragon Gate, he was not able to do the same stuff in PWG and even in Dragon Gate USA that he normally would have had he been here. So unfortunately, that kind of hurt him. But still, he's still up there. And number 3 is just El Generico, just because he's the man. Pure talent. He's been amazing. I think in my top 5 PWG matches, I also think he's in all 5. The match at Steenwolf, the tag match at All-Star Weekend Night 1. Nope, he was not in Chris Hero versus Akira Tozawa. I'd have to think after that, though. What other? His match with Claudio at Kurt Russell Reunion I thought was great. Was he in TDT4? Actually, I don't think he was. All right, never mind then. But he's still a really talented guy. Most outstanding fighter, John Jones. Just John Jones. Anderson Silva, outstanding as far as how he's been finishing, how he finished his last 2 opponents. That to me was just outstanding. And Nick Diaz for having 2 amazing fights this year. Amazing fights. I thought were incredible. They were probably my number 3 and number 4 fight this year. Best box office draw. I put John Jones just because as far as revenue goes, I think he pulled in more money than anybody else did this year. I put in John Cena, and I think I put in George St. Pierre also, just because his absence would have brought in the most money this year. Feud of the year, I gave to Kevin Steen versus Ring of Honor. I thought the whole angle they've done this whole year of like Kevin Steen being like a part of the underground movement, like the fans wanting him in Ring of Honor, listening to the fans, all this stuff, stirring Ring of Honor rebellion, I thought was awesome. And I thought they really did an amazing job with it. So Kevin Steen versus Ring of Honor is my feud of the year. My second feud of the year is Kevin Steen versus the Young Bucks from PWG. I thought that was built really well. And number 3, I put CM Punk versus John Cena. Has been a lot of great feuds this year. The Kevin Steen stuff has been awesome, but that wasn't, I'm talking more like one-on-one directed, like wrestler A versus wrestler B. Not a lot. Maybe Eddie Edwards versus Dave Richards. Yeah. Tag team of the year, I gave 1 the Young Bucks, 2 Beer Money, and 3 the Rock Nest Monsters. The Young Bucks are obvious. They've just been doing amazing things in PWG, in TNA in the short time they were there this year, in Ring of Honor. They've just been all over the place. They've been great. Beer Money, because at one point they were the best part of TNA, and similar with the Motor City Machine Guns last year, but not to the same extent. They kind of made everything they were doing a lot better. Everything TNA was doing a little better just because they were a part of it. And also them too. The tour at the end of the year has been really good. And the Rock Nest Monsters, I was going to give it to Future Shock, but I think the Rock Nest Monsters really made a name for themselves this year more than Future Shock did. And I guess part of that's booking, because look at Future Shock at the end of this year. If you look as far as the next ROH champions, they're probably like number 5, number 6 on the list. As far as ROH title contenders right now, again, this is the booking, not wrestling ability. Briscoes are number 1. Number 2 on the rankings is the Young Bucks. Number 3 is probably the former champions. Number 4 is probably the All Night Express. And then you got Future Shock. If you look in PWG, number 1 is Steen and Dragon. Number 2 is maybe the Young Bucks. And then number 3, I think, is the Rock Ness Monsters. I think every single show, they've slowly elevated up the tag team ranks through their awesome performances. And they've just been so great. So, so great. And I love Future Shock. Don't get me wrong. But I just thought Rock Ness Monsters deserved this a little more. Most improved, I went Dolph Ziggler, Wade Barrett, Michael Elgin. Dolph Ziggler mainly because he was always good. But this year, in my opinion, he became amazing. This year, he went from good to top 3 wrestler in the company. Best on interviews, CM Punk, Eddie Kingston, Kevin Steen. I would have ranked Steen higher, but he didn't do enough mainstream. And I don't mean mainstream as in WWE TNA, as in mainstream as in on the ROH TV show, on the ROH DVDs. A lot of the stuff he did was very underground, YouTube-ish. Whereas more of the stuff that CM Punk and Eddie Kingston did affected the business and the company. CM Punk pulled in one of the best B-show numbers in a while. And had one of the best matches in a while, one of the best shows, one of the most fun times to be a wrestling fan. And Eddie Kingston, his promo, I personally still say to this day, is a big reason why the Chikara pay-per-view did so well. So, yeah, those two affected business a lot more than Steed did, unfortunately. Most charismatic, Zack Ryder actually gave number 1, not John Cena. But I did give John Cena number 2, and Kevin Steen number 3. Best technical wrestler, Daniel Bryan, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards. Best technical wrestler is more about pure technical ability to perform a great match. And I think Davey, I know there's been a lot of criticism on Davey, but I think he's still, the way at the pace he goes, it's easy for him to have really great matches because of his technical style. The only problem with his matches is when they give him too much time. That's when and it happens too frequently, I will admit. But he still has the technical ability to put on great stuff, and Eddie Edwards, obviously. Bruiser Brody Memorial Award, Best Brawler, Kevin Steen, Sami Callihan, Drake Younger. Best High Flyer, Pac, AR Fox, Ricochet. Most Overrated, I put Kane. And I'm not as big as a Kane hater as people are, but this is talking about the push is not commensurate to their wrestling ability and or microphone skills. And I think Kane, John Cena, and Rob Van Dam. Again, I have nothing against either of the 3. I'm just saying their push, their current position in their respective companies is not commensurate to their ability / mic skills. Most underrated, I put number 1, Seth Rollins. I don't know if that counts. He's been rotting in FCW. And hey, again, when your push is not commensurate to your ability, he's one of the best. He's arguably the second best wrestler in that company, and he's not on the main roster. So yeah, most underrated. I put number 2, Daniel Bryan, just because for a long time he was a basic jobber. And number 3, I put Christian. I just think that he should be in that main event level, but I think he's stuck at that upper mid-card level, and he deserves to be higher. Promotion of the year. 1, Chikara. I don't want to be called a mark on that. 2, PWG. 3, UFC. The PWG one's obvious. Chikara, in my opinion, this year, creatively, has not been as good as 2010, in my opinion. I think the way the BDK was done in 2010, and part of this was injuries. 2010 was a much better year for storylines, in my opinion. But as far as growing as a company, I mean, they did put on their first pay-per-view. It was a success. They had some of their biggest gates ever this year with King of Trios, Chikarasaurus Rex, and High Noon. Usually, I remember back in 2010 when they ran Chikarasaurus Rex, they did like 750 fans, and they made a big announcement. This was the biggest attendance of our show, of a Chikara show ever. And then this year, in King of Trios, in High Noon, and in Chikarasaurus Rex, they did like 700, 800 fans all 3 times. Like, it was like, casual. When back in 2010, it was, holy shit, that's a big deal. In 2011, I think that they were able to get that high attendance, shows how much they've grown as a company. They finally went to iPay-per-view, and it was a big success. They got like 1,500 buys, which for an iPay-per-view is a big deal. Ring of Honor's first iPay-per-view did like 1,000 buys, I think, 900. This one, and they had TV. This one, their first time, had 1,500 with no TV, with just Eddie King, with internet build, great product, and Eddie Kingston. And their shows have been pretty good, I would say. They run more shows than PWG does. Drew Slayer mentioned this, and I kind of agree with him. PWG has been awesome and all, but they only run 10 shows a year. Chikara and Ring of Honor run far more shows. So when they can put a great product and claim to have great wrestlers with triple the amount of shows, they achieved more. PWG, I know you're going to say, oh, PWG with less shows was able to achieve the same. But I don't view it like that. I view it more like, as far as getting yourself further as a company, one put on great shows 10 times. The other one put on great shows probably the same amount of times with other really good shows around it. At number 3, I put UFC. I wasn't going to put UFC number 1 like people normally do. They lost too much money this year. Their pay-per-view buys, I think, were down 30%. Part of that's injuries. Part of that's too many shows. Part of that's bad timing. I understand. But because of these losses, they have not grown as a company. They have actually gone down as a company. And that's why, in my opinion, they shouldn't deserve the promotion of the year when they've went backwards. Best weekly TV show, I put ROH, SmackDown, Dragon Gate Infinity. Match of the year, John Cena versus CM Punk. Kevin Steen versus El Generico from Final Battle, because the December from 2010 counts. And number 3, I put Eddie Edwards versus Roderick Strong from Death Force Honor. This is subject to change. If you look on my channel, all my top 5 matches of the year have question marks next to them. That is because I'm going to rewatch the top 5, and I'm going to put them in a different order, because I haven't even seen John Cena CM Punk. I've never seen that match a second time. I'm not even kidding. I saw it one time on a stream, and I thought it was 5 stars. So maybe watching it a second time, and I have the DVD too. I have it somewhere over there. So maybe watching it a second time. By the way, that is the first WWE pay-per-view DVD I have bought since WrestleMania 24. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And Eddie Edwards, Roderick Strong, I just saw on DVD, and I thought it was amazing. MMA match of the year, Dan Henderson versus Shogun Hua at UFC 139. That fight was incredible. I saw that with my best friend, who's a huge Dan Henderson fan. He doesn't like MMA. He doesn't really care that much about MMA, but he cares big time about Dan Henderson. And we were at, I think, a sports grill, and he was just going insane watching that fight, and he popped for the finish. Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez for the Bellator Lightweight Championship. That fight was also awesome. And I put for my number 3, Nick Diaz versus Paul Daly at Strikeforce. Diaz versus Daly. I would have put Clay Guida versus Ben Henderson, but I like this fight a little more. BJ Penn and Nick Diaz is also not far behind from those 4. Rookie of the Year, Jacob Hammermeyer, Archibald Peck, Daichi Hashimoto. Best non-wrestler, Ricardo Rodriguez, Vicky Guerrero, and R.D. Evans. Best television announcer, Kevin Kelly, Jim Ross, Nigel McGuinness. I would put Jim Ross first, but he hasn't been on that many shows this year. Worst television announcer, Michael Cole, Booker T, Jerry Lar. Best show, Steen Wolf. I believe that. A lot of people have been reviewing Steen Wolf, and there's been a lot of people saying, how is this the show of the year? There's only 2 great matches. 3 great matches, maybe. This is my problem with interview pro wrestling. It's gotten to the point where we look at the number of great matches, and that defines how good a show is. Like, matches 1 through 7 can be 3 3/4 stars, but not great. And match 8 can be 4 stars. And people will say, oh, 7.5 out of 10 because there was only 1 great match. Great matches shouldn't define a show. To me, undercards are a big deal. Look at Joshi Mania. The last few matches on that show are really good. They're a lot of fun. Some of them are great. But in my opinion, the undercards were too hard to sit through, which is why those shows didn't get 8s and 9s. They got 7s, 7.5s, which is still really good. That's a good show, but not a great show, not an awesome show, not a completely fun experience. And PWG Steen Wolf, the first 2 matches were both good. The third match, the Rock Ness Monsters versus the Dynasty, that match was almost great. That match was near great. That match was so much fun. Then I believe we have Willie Mack and Davey Richards. That match was also really, really, really good. A lot of fun. Almost great as well. Very near close to 4 stars. The Dynasty versus Los Luchas, a very good match. Around 3.5-ish. Then we had Chuck Taylor versus Ricochet, which in my opinion was great. Wolves versus Future Shock versus Young Bucks, which was awesome. Kelsey versus El Generico, which was amazing. So in my opinion, you had 2 amazing matches, a great match, and 4 matches that were all really, really good, and 2 good matches. That's a fucking nearly perfect show. I don't know what more people can want. Just because not every match is great doesn't define how great a show is. And in my opinion, that show and that crowd is amazing, and that main event angle is amazing. Steen Wolf did a lot. Money in the Bank was also an amazing show. I love that show too. That show has 3 great matches and a really, really good match. But that show also has filler. That show has Kelly versus, I I think Nikki Bella or Brie Bella. Mark Henry, Big Show, which I like the angle. Wasn't really a fan of the match. And to me, people say, oh, well, every show needs filler. I've always disagreed with that, especially on a 6-match card like that one. If you can't book a 5-minute fucking reason to put a match on pay-per-view, then don't do it. In my opinion, I hate when matches on pay-per-view that aren't announced, because it's so easy to see this ahead of time. It's so easy to say, ooh, Brie Bella beat the shit out of Kelly 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. Then the next week, she beats up Kelly again after her match. Kelly gets frustrated and says, you know what, I'm tired of your crap. Let's have a match of the pay-per-view. You want a title match to the Valley? Here you go. And already, that match is not filler. The match can be bad, but what bothers me is that the match just had no build whatsoever. And I'm not saying that match is why Money in the Bank wasn't as good as Steen Wolf. Steen Wolf, to me, was just more of a complete show than Money in the Bank was. And I put Chikara, King of Trios, Night 3, because that shows the best show in Chikara history and also awesome. Now the Category B Awards. Worst major show, I give to Victory Road. Kind of obvious why. Best Wrestling Maneuver, Ricochet 630. Every time I see that, I mark. That move's amazing. Most disgusting promotional tactic, TNA sending Jeff Hardy out at TNA Victory Road when he was unable to perform. Worst TV show. I didn't know what to do with this one. I was either going to put Impact or Raw. I've changed it a million times. I think I put Impact in the end. I'm not sure. I might have. Raw from like October to November was shit. But Raw for most of the year wasn't that bad. Impact, I mean, it had its ups and downs. It was really good supposedly it was really good from October to now. Which, by the way, I said for a long time that TNA always gets really good from Bound for Glory through December. That's their best period of the year. Moving on. Worst match of the year, Sting versus Jeff Hardy. I was going to give this to Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole, but I remember the build to that match I really liked, and Sting versus Jeff Hardy was just an embarrassment as a pro wrestling match. It fucked over a lot of fans. So yeah, worst feud of the year, Sting versus Immortal. Just annoying. Worst promotion, I gave this to TNA just because, again, staying the same after so many years of television on Spike TV. Their ratings are still averaging a 1.1. Their pay-per-view guys have gone down. As a business, as a company, they just keep going backwards. Best Booker, Mike Quackenbush. Promoter of the year, I still gave it to Dana White. I couldn't really give it to Mike Quackenbush or Excalibur. Dana White still as a promoter and as a figurehead still did a great job. It's not his fault why the UFC went backwards. It's not like Dana White booked. It's not like Dana White said, George St. Pierre, you take the night off tonight. We don't need you at this pay-per-view. No. He did everything he could as a booker. Just injuries kind of held him back. Best gimmick, I put Archibald Peck as band leader. Worst gimmick, I put Triple H as COO. Best wrestling book, Undisputed, How to Become World Champion in 1,372 Easy Steps. I have it here somewhere up there. That book is awesome. I really like that book. Best pro wrestling DVD. I will admit I haven't seen a lot of DVDs this year. I have a good amount of the WWE DVDs. I have the Randy Orton DVD, the Austin DVD, the Brett DVD. I think I have like Big Show's DVD, and I think I have the True Story of WrestleMania. Those. I just haven't had time to see them. But I've heard from everyone that Greatest Rivalries was the best one. I've heard from everyone that Greatest Rivalries was amazing, so I sent that in. Openly knowing I have not seen it. I've not seen a lot of those DVDs. I just sent the first one that everyone recommended. Oh, I should have sent Wrestling Road Diaries. Fuck. Actually, in hindsight, that would have been better. Wrestling Road Diaries, I did see, and I loved it. So those are my awards. Again, going out of top to bottom, Wrestler of the Year, Hiroshi Tanahashi. MMA Most Valuable, George St. Pierre. Most Outstanding, Eddie Edwards. Most Outstanding Fighter, John Jones. Best Box Office Draw, John Jones. Feud of the Year, Kevin Steen vs. Ring of Honor. Tag Team, The Young Bucks. Most Improved, Dolph Ziggler. Best on Interview, CM Punk. Most Charismatic, Zack Ryder. Best Technical Wrestler, Daniel Bryan. Bruiser Brody Memorial Award, Kevin Steen. Best Flying Wrestler, Pac. Most Overrated, Kane. Most Underrated, Seth Rollins. Promotion of the Year, Chikara. Best Weekly TV Show, Ring of Honor. Match of the Year, John Cena vs. CM Punk. MMA Fight of the Year, Dan Henderson vs. Shogun. Rookie of the Year, Jacob Herremeyer. Best Non-Wrestler, Ricardo Rodriguez. Best TV Announcer, Kevin Kelly. Worst TV Announcer, Michael Cole. Best Major Show, Steen Wolf. Worst Major Show, Victory Road. Best Wrestling Move, Ricochet 630. Most Disgusting Promotional Tactic, TNA sending Jeff Hardy out of TNA Victory Road when he was unable to perform. Worst TV Show, Impact. Worst Match of the Year, Jeff Hardy vs. Sting. Worst feud of the year, Sting vs. Immortal. Worst promotion, TNA. Best booker, Mike Quackenbush. Promoter of the year, Dana White. Best gimmick, Archibald Peck as band leader. Worst gimmick, Triple H as COO. Best book, Chris Jericho's second book. Best DVD, Brett Sean. Send me questions for the Dirty White Boy Shoot interview. Check out AG Video for Life. Check out AR Fox or CCH. Bigrat 210. I'm out.